Imagine a mechanical gear with 13 spikes, next to one with 20 spikes, next to one with 18 spikes, and they move like this, a spike a day, just like the old clocks used to, okay? The first and the second would join day one every 260 days. This was the ordinary man's calendar, working class calendar. It was an almanac to follow religious and social activities. See, it's the people that surrounded these cities. When you see a place like this, only 3 to 5% of the people actually lived here. People lived around. They lived in small villages. See, their housing had to be built on the ground. It was made of sticks and thatch, and they could paint their face, their hair, and their body with colored clays. They wore a cotton garment like the Caesars. They wore a loincloth. They wore sandals, and that's it. They farmed, they hunted, they collected from the jungle, and once every 13 days, they had to walk to these cities. This is 600 after Christ. They had to walk the cloth on the ground, and on the cloth, they had to give their tributes. Tribute was a small proportion of their production. The area here is not very productive. We have no soil, and we have no water on the surface to irrigate any crops. See, the Yucatan is a big rock of limestone. It's so porous it doesn't hold water. The water filters. If you slice the peninsula across, you would find something like a giant Swiss cheese of limestone. Thousands of rivers, streams, lakes, all below the surface. These water sources create air bubbles, and the air bubbles start to eat their way up until eventually the surface collapses. And when it collapses, we have natural connections to underground sources of water. That is the reason why we think they established themselves here. This city began to be populated 200 years after Christ by just farming and hunting classes, organized by clans. They were well structured, they were well organized, but nothing of this existed. They became so successful in their organization that they were sent authorities to be represented. These authorities came from Guatemala. They came here, we know when they arrived. Well, we know because they wrote the dating. The dating of this culture is the most accurate in the world. The day they arrived and founded the city of Chichén Itza was November the 6th of 499 after Christ. We also know they began almost over 100 years later to build structures of stone. And the first structures they built, that is one of the first buildings they constructed. But it used to be only a tower. They later on began to add around, and they added all these terraces. But the original building, identified through they intervene the structures. Archaeologists make tunnels or trenches around the structures. So they identified the